Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Sharifa, and my poetry name is New Lily. If you're new to the channel, please check out the links located in the description box and comment section. And in both locations, you'll find an identical set of links. Links that lead to videos that talk about what started my targeting in 2020, as well as links that lead to videos that share information about the targeted individual program. Information about the tactics used on targets, technology used on targets, etc. Y'all, I'm sorry if my voice sounds faint. I'm actually feeling really weak. It's a lot, y'all. I'm under a lot of stress. Things have gotten kind of gnarly at the day job, and actually, this is going to be the last video that I make about that job, regardless of what happens there, because I am a target and things are going to happen continuously as long as I'm in this program. And it really doesn't matter where I'm at, whether it's work, the gym, the grocery store, things are going to happen. And so I can't constantly keep documenting everything that happens, because all it really does is creates friction and retribution, and then it's like it seems like I'm just sitting there talking about people when that's not the case. I'm typically documenting something that happened. I'm gonna talk about it in this video, right? I have a lot to talk about, but I'm just apologizing for my voice sounding weak because, although I'm very strong, extremely strong, right? And it's gonna take a lot to make me cry, like physical. It's gonna take physical. They're doing physical. Because with the high stress of working two jobs and then dealing with certain things happening, that makes your cortisol level go up, and then I'm dealing with energy weapon attacks. Since about the whole week, they've been humming on me strong. Now I'm hearing the hum, y'all, and that has a physical effect as well. So it's literally taking a toll on my health, in addition to the fact that I eat junk recently. I've been bulking, as I told you all. I've gained a lot of weight. Y'all saw in the last video what I'm looking like. So it's good. I like the weight gain, but I've been doing it in a bad way where I'm eating a lot of junk. And so that, in addition to them using energy weapons on me and then high stress environments, it's just taking a toll, y'all. Like, it doesn't matter how strong I am. I'm not, it doesn't matter if, words can't hurt me, sticks and stones can break my bones, that words can never hurt me. I'm still human, right? And so when you're dealing with that level of stress, all these different avenues where stress is happening, and then energy weapon attacks as well, the cortisol level goes up. So it doesn't matter how strong you are, physically or mentally, that is going to take a toll on you. And cortisol levels can kill you, Yah forbid, right? So I need to pray. I need to stay prayed up because of a lot of people that are against me, including people that, you would think would have your back. Like, I'm telling you, like, it's really some treacherous stuff I've been dealing with. I'm telling you. So yeah, those cortisol levels could kill you. And so this is why I know I need to take it easy. I need to stop eating junk, first of all. I'm reining it back. I ate 2 servings of KFC. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. Trying to make up for PT. Remember I told you on the last video I started PT. I worked so hard to get where I'm at with my body, y'all, as far as the weight goes. And now I'm doing PT 3 days out of the week. And after doing that first day of PT and seeing how much cardio it is, I lost 2 pounds that morning. I'm like, I am going to have to make up for the loss, and I'm gonna have to eat more on those days, right? And I'm gonna have to do 3 protein shakes a day instead of 2. And so, just again being, cheating on my diet. I tried to make up for the loss day before yesterday, and I ended up buying KFC, 2 servings of it, that greasy, nasty chicken, man. And so now I feel like it raised my blood pressure a little bit, in addition to the high stress levels of everything else that's going on and them using the hum on me. Man, my head is throbbing, y'all. Like, throbbing. It feels like I'm losing my voice. Like, real serious stuff, y'all. Y'all, loud talking coming from the living room. Let that talking stop, and I'm gonna come back and finish the video. I have a lot to talk about. It's not gonna be a long video though. The goal is like an hour to an hour and a half, no longer. I just want to again talk about some of the things that's happened at work, defend myself, and then understand this is the last video I'm making about work. I need the job, y'all. As you know, I need this job. So as qualified as I am, this is like literally the best job I can get right now. It's a government job. It's a good position. It's a law enforcement position. I'm not getting another job like this right now as a target. Like, it's just not happening. Can't get back into teaching. I'm targeted, like I said. I did try to get back into teaching, and I documented what happened with that too, y'all. So it's rough. It's rough. Anyway, so I'm going to get back here and I'm going to finish talking, but I'm going to wait till the talking in the living room stops, because it got loud and I don't want the interruption. I'll be back. Anyways, y'all, continuing on with the video. Again, I apologize for the weak voice. Y'all know I have a soft voice. That's just what it is. But usually I have more power in my voice. But literally, like, when they use the hum on me, it literally, I've told you all this already. I think it does something with the thyroid or that area in the throat where the voice box is, because my voice starts to go. In addition to other things, it causes shortness of breath. It causes headaches, nausea, several different horrible symptoms. And that compounding on top of the day I had and the high cortisol levels, just terrible, y'all. Anyways, so basically the same thing I was talking about in this last video, the targeted individual documentation and brief workout update, where you see that I was on camera, the hour 29-minute video, that last video I posted. It's the same ongoing thing happening at work. It's that same basically retribution that's been happening for the last 2 weeks, ever since I made these 2 videos. The part 2, the villainization of the targeted individual and workout update, and the part 3, the villainization of the targeted individual and workout update. And really, y'all, any video that I've made about work, because at this point I've made about 7, to be honest with you. What happened when I first started, remember, if y'all listen to that first video I made, let me scroll to that first one. Not even 7. Look how many. The first one was part 1, targeted individual career update, introduction to corrections. And that was where I was telling y'all what was happening in the orientation and the reaction I was having to the doctor after they had all that sensitization in the orientation, right? So that was the first video I made. Let me see how many I've made, because it wasn't even 7. It hasn't even been that many. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 or... Y'all, there's some loud noise going on outside. Let me stop the video and I'll come back. Anyways, y'all, I'm back. So like I was telling you, I'm sorry, there was like loud theater going on outside. I was just trying to go over the course of the last 2 months and change, because at this point now I'm going on month 3 of working at the job, and over those last 3 months I've only made about 5 videos, and every video I made has been documenting, like, targeting activity that's been taking place. And I already said, even in that first video, you'll hear me say that, I wasn't planning to make a video about work because, as a target, I know things are going to happen everywhere I go, and I don't want to lose this job, and I can't afford to make videos in there anyway because it's confidential. I know y'all remember me saying that. If you've been keeping up with my videos, all you have to do is go check out that first video from the last clip, introduction to corrections, where it says career update. But I told y'all, I absolutely had to document what was taking place because, again, and this is typically what it is, I had a PTSD reaction to sensitization. The whole orientation for the whole week was full of sensitization, full of it. And, just check out that video, that initial video I made. And I wasn't going to make a video about it. I was like, okay, this is just, par for the course. At least they gave me the job. This is part of being a target. Maybe they're trying to show me some of the things that I've done wrong and, that I need to, change or whatever. The word change they keep throwing at me. And so I was just going along with it. But then, some of the orientation, some of the sensitization was really gnarly. Again, you could check out that video. I talked about it, right? And so eventually I had a reaction, a PTSD reaction to what was playing in the orientation, to one of the things. I can't remember what it was that was playing. And then the doctor, one of the doctors for the job, came in, right, one day to instruct, a few, it's not a course really. It was like I said, it's an orientation. So we had different doctors and professors talking to us and going over procedures and documents, etc. And it was only 2 cadets at the time, myself and this cadet over in St. Thomas. I was the only one for this island. And then the neighboring island had a cadet that was being brought on board. And so him and I were on a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call every day doing orientation together. So it wasn't like your typical cadet induction where they have like several cadets at one time. With me, it was special, and it was only me for this island. And that all has everything, I'm certain, to do with the targeting. But anyways, so that's what it was. It's not a big deal. At least I got the job. I'm grateful. So that's what made it kind of awkward, though, because when this doctor came into the room to instruct the course. It was just she and I in the room alone. And then you had the computer set up where the cadet in the neighboring island was in the course with us virtually. Y'all, hold on a minute. I'll be back. Hold on a second. I remember when the doctor came in, as she stood in front of the course and started instructing, I was watching her and acting almost as awkward as I felt. But she kept doing this thing where she was like pulling her dress down. She kept like purposely pulling her dress down, like pulling her dress down. I talked about it in that initial video that I made, right? Again, I'm referencing this video, the first video I made about the job when I first started 2 months and change ago, before I got into the actual jail, when I was just doing orientation. It started before I even got into the facility. And so the doctor kept pulling her dress down. And in the video, they were like throwing hints at me about being, not being such a bully, basically. Like, stop being such a mean person. And, you know, you think that you're honest, it's a good thing, but you're saying hurtful things. And honesty isn't always the best thing. And being careful about the things you say and da-da-da-da. Right? And so then she came in and she was doing that, like, as she's teaching whatever in French, she kept pulling her dress down. So I started acting so awkward. And then, of course, they started flying the flyby and all this strippiness started happening once that started happening. And so that was what made me make the first video, because I wasn't going to make a video. You know, as much as I saw the sensitization and the orientation, I understood what the message they were trying to convey. I think it's not fair. I think it's a warped perception of the situation, because I think, you know, it's being painted like I just sat there and started bullying people. And similar to what I'm talking about now, that's not the case. It's a situation where I'm targeted. I'm targeted for a stupid reason because I sent a text message to someone in my close circle 4 years and change ago, and it created all this horrible treatment, you know, and stalking and being watched on camera and invasion of privacy. You know, and then even still, after all of that happened, for 2 years, I did not make a video. I tried to relocate off island and the thing followed me. That's how serious it was. And it blew up and went viral and I almost lost my life. And then I came back to island and that was when I started making videos and telling my story and defending myself, etc. Of course, it didn't make much of a difference. At that point, it was too late. I already had a bunch of enemies and people who didn't want to hear shit I had to say. It was just, oh, that's the bitch that said offensive things, rather than looking at it objectively and looking at what actually took place. But nonetheless, it did help in a way, because I was able to tell my story and clear that narrative that was spinning, because they were actually really trying to spin that narrative like I had done that nasty thing that they created from the text message. And when I actually told my story and talked about what took place before I even got here on island and sent the text, that cleared that rumor up. And then it turned into, oh, she's a bully, she's a bitch, she says mean things, when all it's been is reactive abuse to targeting, antagonization, and harassment. That's all it's been. Reactive abuse. It's so flawed, because the people in my close circle know me. You know, everyone else doesn't know me. The people in my close circle know me, and they know how laid back I am, and that I, out of all of us, have been the most laid back. I always have been the most laid back. I'm not an aggressive person. I'm not vicious. You know, I'm not an angry person. Now I'm angry. I'm pissed. I'm livid. 4 years of my life was taken away from me. This thing started when I was in my last year of my 20s. I'm now 33. So yeah, I'm angry. I'm bitter and I'm mad. I'm an, I guess, angry black woman. But it's not the stereotype. I just happen to be black. That's not why I'm angry. Anyway, so it's just a lot of gaslighting that comes along with this thing when you get targeted. You know, you might get targeted for some stupid, minuscule thing, get all this horrible treatment, have these stupid reactions, especially if you don't learn how the thing works, get villainized further, attacked further, have more reactions, and then, oh, you're playing the victim. Oh, she's such a victim. Oh, she's being bullied. Oh, she's the bully. Like, it's just, it's a night fucking mare. And then I'm being, you know, hinted at that I'm a werewolf, and at night she behaves during the daytime. At night is when she comes out. You know, I guess they're referencing the things that happen at the gym, when you can clearly see every time anything has happened in the gym, they always start with me first. It's never me starting with anyone. My head hurts. It's just that I have these reactions, because it's like all day long you're dealing with stupidness, and then this is the one place you're coming to try and get some peace and just simply work out in peace, and you have to deal with shit here too. It's just like, of course you're angry. It's gaslighting. I hate this program, man. Anyway, so Oh, my head is hurting me. So anyways, y'all, that's really where the video started. It started at orientation. And again, it was because of a reaction I was having to sensitization, and it turned into me making a video. That was the start of it. Then when I actually got into the facility, that first week in the facility, y'all saw the documentation. That was the part 2 video, career update, introduction to corrections. That was rough. That first week felt like a haze. You know, like when you join a sorority and you go through all these like degrading, humiliating experiences to see if you're going to be fit enough to make it, you know, and get into the sorority. That's what it felt like that first week on the job. That's why I made videos, because it was so bad. I was like, oh my God, it was so bad, the sensitization and the things that were being said. And I was like, damn, I don't even know, you know, even if I could get past what's being said, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to stick around, because they were even acting annoyed with me, like they didn't want to train me. And that first week, things have gotten so much better since that first week. Anyway, so that's what that second video was about. It wasn't me just sitting there going in and saying, oh, I think I'm gonna make a video about everybody in here and pick violence. That wasn't it. Everyone already had preconceived notions of who they thought I was. I don't think they were happy that I got hired on, and that's what it was. And they had things to say, and it was a lot of directed convo, and you know, it seemed like I was annoying them, just sitting up under them trying to train, and things got better over time, thank the Most High. But that was what the second video was about. Then came the third video. You know, it's just constantly been me defending myself. Anyway, it's been about 5 videos that I made, right? I didn't lie on anybody. I literally just talked about what was taking place as far as directed convo goes, or me having a stupid reaction to something that's taking place. That's really all it's been. So those last 2 videos I made, though, let's fast forward to now and what's going on now at work. These 2 videos here from 2 weeks ago, I already explained what happened. You know, things had gotten significantly better on the job. I was like, okay, things are looking up. Like, had gotten so much better. Then I went to work 2 weeks ago, and you know, I think the inmates or the detainees didn't recognize me, because at this point now I realized they're privy to the situation. And like I said, they started moving different with me. It was a whole different reaction from when I first got in there, once they learned about me, right? Oh, my head is hurting me. So them too, like everyone else, they have preconceived notions about me, and they think I'm this bitch that says off-wall things, or whatever it is that's going on, right? Sorry, y'all, my head is throbbing. So they were alerted to who I was. You know, I even saw some of the COs I was training under rubbing their nose, you know, at some of them, you know, just it turned into this thing in there. And so the reception from them changed, and they knew me as nurse, and nurse the target, that, you know, whatever. So I think what happened 2 weeks ago is I took out my braids. First of all, when I went with the braids in, because I had put some cornrows in, and that was a relatively new hairstyle, already they weren't recognizing me. So that was already a thing, right? And I'm always wearing the mask and the shades too. So that kind of creates a level of anonymity as well. Even though I'm pretty sure a lot of them have access to these cameras around me. I'm pretty sure they all know how I look now at this point. Anyway, about 2 weeks ago, I had taken out the braids, and I was coming with my hair in a bun, right? And that was the first time in the whole 2 months and change that I've been working at the facility that I was coming with my hair in a bun. Before I had braids. When I first started at the facility, I had braids, and I kept putting different braids in. So I think they didn't recognize me. And so I was working that day. I remember, first of all, it was a week full of sensitization. That's what part 2 was about. You know, I was verbally attacked with directed convo by this CO that had a beard. I hadn't done anything to him. That's what I talked about in the part 2 video. That really happened. That wasn't a lie. They all saw it. You know, I was sitting there all day long, and he was just saying horrible things for no reason. I hadn't done anything to him. So that's what the part 2 video was about. And then the part 3 video was talking about what happened in that same week, a couple days later, when I think they didn't recognize me, and they're the inmates or the detainees. Now they're painting it like I'm thirsty, and she's being thirsty and she wants attention. That's not what happened at all. So anyways, they didn't recognize me, I think. And I remembered I went in that same unit I was working at today. And what happened was I was actually on the other side with a senior CO. And the new CO, she's an actual CO, so she just got out of cadet status. She just graduated from police academy. And she looks like she's young, you know, I think she's like in her maybe late 20s, mid-20s, late 20s, something like that. Maybe my younger sister's age, right? So not that much younger than me, but young. She looks younger, right? So she's new to the job like me, but a little bit more experienced. And, she was on that side, and the senior CO I was under was kind of back and forth, kind of assisting her because she's new, right? So now this is her time to actually have her own spot in the facility, right? So she's not under anyone anymore. And it's been months and months and months, right? Because from what I understand, police academy is almost like half a year of training and schooling. So by the time you come back, all that training that you had before you left, it might slip out your mind. You need refreshments or whatever. I hear that happens a lot, apparently. So, they have senior COs pair up with her, not pair up with her like they're sitting next to her, but in the unit on the other side with her. So that's what was happening. My CO, the one I was training under, the senior CO, was back and forth, going over there helping her every now and then throughout the day. So it was time to do head count. And that's a process that happens in the facility. I don't feel like explaining it, y'all, but it's just a way to keep track of all of the bodies in the facility. Of course, that's important when you're dealing with prisoners, and you have to keep track of where everyone is at all times. So at certain times during the day, they do something called head count. So for whatever reason, the senior CO said, look, she's doing head count. Let's go over there on that side with her. So I went over. I had on my mask and my shades like I always do. I just had a different hairstyle. I don't know if I just looked different that day, like they didn't recognize me, and so they just had the reaction that they had when I first got in the facility. I don't know what it was, but I remember I went over there with her, and they were like, "What? Who that be?" And this is just Crucian slang, Yar Island slang. It just means like, "Who's that? Whoa, who's that?" They're like, "Who's that? Who's that?" And I heard one of them say, "That's nurse. That's nurse." They said nurse. They said KFC. KFC. Right? Because remember, they now all have this thing with me. They think I'm a bitch, and so it's kind of like they have this feeling towards me of animosity. So it's no longer just like a new female in the prison. It's now the bitch, right? And so once they realize who it is, it's like, oh, nurse. So then they're like, KFC, KFC. And remember, I told you I'd be tearing food up. I don't care. Even today I heard sensitization about the way I don't care, right? I'm not going to live an uncomfortable life because everyone's staring at me. I'm not going to, just like how you get to let your hair down when you go home and dig your nose and dig in your ass and do whatever you do when no one's looking. I'm going to do the same thing. I don't care if these cameras are on me. And then not only that, it's also the fact that, because people are watching me eat, I feel uncomfortable, so I typically try to race and rip through the food because I don't like people watching me eat. I never have. So it's a mix of things, a mix of me refusing to move in this uncomfortable way because people are staring at me, and then also to actually feeling uncomfortable with people watching me. So I usually try to tear through food real quick. I tear it down real quick. And so I'm pretty sure they saw me tearing up KFC. Remember, I told you I've been eating a lot of junk in KFC. And so I believe that's why they're like, KFC, KFC, because I be tearing that shit up. Like, I'm telling y'all, whenever I have it in front of me, I be tearing that shit up and going through it real quick. It's real sloppy. So anyways, and even still after they had that reaction about KFC, KFC, I still turn around and tear up food whenever I get it in front of me. I'm going to do what I want to do. I still dig up in my nose. I'm going to do what I want to do. So anyways, so they were like, KFC? KFC? Like, Nama, freaking out. Like, they couldn't believe that it was the same person. I'm like, what is so shocking? I know I look the same. I just have a different hairstyle. It couldn't be that drastically different. So anyways, that was the reaction. And then I just noticed, like, things got weird after that happened. You see, like, look at the knock. Like, literally after that happened, and they actually saw this happen too. That's the weird thing about it. That's what's strange. They're all watching, and they all saw this happen. Literally after that happened, I remembered leaving a unit, right? And when I came back up after lunch, the older CO I was under was in there with this inmate from her side of the unit, not that same unit that was going on the way they're going on. And he was sitting next to her. And it was like I don't know, it seemed like this was planned, but as soon as I got into the unit, there was a plate of food sitting there, and he said, who plate of food is for? And she said, I don't know, it's just sitting there. And he said, well, I don't want it. We don't want it. We don't want it. That's what he said. That's literally what happened. They all saw it happen. And so then after that happened, it was just kind of like that kind of talk, with this we don't want thing. Like, several inmates had came in, with that same we don't want talk. Like, it's just like this thing saying we don't want it. That was the talk. Literally, I kid you not, it was a Rasta guy. And they all saw this and they pretend like it didn't happen, right? And I'm saying they because I'm hearing noise in the back. I'm not talking about the people in the jail. This literally happened, and I know they saw it too. So the plate of food was sitting there with the older CO, And that same guy that I'm talking about, like I said, she asked, whose plate of food is this? And he said, I don't know. And he said, but we don't want it. That's what he said. We don't want it. That's what he said. And it's this thing that they're using in there now, where they're kind of just saying like, we don't want it, or she don't want it. You know, this kind of way, like as a reference to either that CO, the female that I had the dream about, or about the inmates, right? Anyway, so that's what it turned into. It kind of just turned into this thing where it kind of got weird in the unit after that reaction from that one unit. It was just weird. That day was weird. I don't know what happened. But that same day, I had went out. The older CO had went outside. I don't remember why she went outside, but she went outside of the unit, completely outside of the building. And so I was on the one side where she was sitting, and the younger CO was on the other side. And so this older inmate came to the door and he knocked. And so I opened the door to see what he wanted, and he had been trying to get to the library all day long. And he kept asking her to call the library and asking her all day long. And he has mental health issues, apparently. He seems to be inducted into the thing too now, because he's using all kinds of sensitization and stuff. But anyway, he seems to have mental health issues. And so he was asking me, hey, it's 3:00. You know, I've been asking all day to go to the library, and I was told at 3:00 that they're gonna call the library and da. I said, yes, I've heard you asking. I said, hold on, I'll go and ask the older, I didn't say the older CEO, I said her name, but I'm just saying here for the video, the older CEO. I said, I'll go ask her if she's gonna make the call for you. So I remember going out and asking her, I said, hey, are you gonna call for so-and-so? It's 3:00 and he's here, he remembers. And she said, he'll be all right. And I said, okay. I said, do you want me to call? And she kind of pinched her nose like I was annoying her. And I guess it's because they're used to him, and you know, I don't think they wanted him to go to the library. I think he has mental health issues and certain things be happening with him. And so I think her saying he'll be all right, she wanted me to just take that social cue as, okay, leave it alone. So I was just like, okay, she seems annoyed with me. Let me just go back in there. And so I went to talk to him. I said, hey, you know, she said, not right now. You know, she's going to deal with it. She said, you'll be okay, not right now. And he said, okay. He said, where you from, by the way? He starts asking me all these questions about where I'm from and blah, blah, blah. And I was explaining to him why I don't have the island accent as strong, and telling him some of my background, that I'm half Trini, blah, 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 blah. So then when I get back into the unit now, after talking with him for a couple seconds, I sit down, and the younger CO was on the phone, and she said, I don't even know why. And they heard this happen. It's not something I made up. I didn't make this up. I know they heard this happen. She literally said, I don't know why that girl thinks anybody would be jealous of her. She literally said that and then trailed off. Her voice trailed off and she stopped talking. So I'm so used to directed convo, I got awkward and uncomfortable, especially since I had just had that thing over at her unit with the guys. And then I went to lunch and I came back, and that inmate was saying, we don't want it about the plate of food. So I felt uncomfortable, and I was, you know, weird about it. And it's not a big deal. You know, I'm not trying to say this thing because I think this was taken out of context too. I think that's why there's so much animosity coming from certain inmates or prisoners as well. It might sound like I'm saying they're desperate. That's not what I meant. What I meant is I was saying it's not that difficult to get inmates to check you out. As long as you're a female, you don't look bad, they're going to check you out. But what I meant by that comment is that obviously they're restricted. They're in a prison cell similar to me. I'm not physically locked up, but I'm going through the same drought. This is why they keep trying to, antagonize me and call me thirsty, when actually I'm not, by the way. But I'm going through the same drought similar to them, where my dating life is blocked up because of targeting, and theirs is blocked up because they're in a prison cell, right? So obviously if they see a female, they don't see that all the time. They don't get to see that all the time. They're inside a facility. They're men, right? They have urges and human needs and stuff. They're men, right? And so if they see a female that looks okay, they're going to check her out. It's not like, she's the best looking thing. I'm so fly. Everybody's jealous of me. No, it's not a big deal. The point is the reception from them changed when they learned about me. And it's not a big deal. It's not like I need them to check me out and look at me and, I'm the best thing walking. I'm so fine. Everyone's jealous of me. No, I don't feel that way at all. Why would they be jealous of me? For what? I don't have a car. I'm targeted. So many aspects of my life is blocked up at the moment. I have so many enemies, people I don't even know exist, that are freaking staring at me with hateful eyes. Like, what is there to be jealous of? I don't understand the stupidness. What is there to be jealous of? I'm struggling every day just to stay alive. What is there to be jealous? Why would I say you're jealous of me? It's idiotic to me. Why would I say that? So anyway, that's what it is now. Like, they keep using sensitization ever since I made this video about haters and, I have haters. Everyone's jealous of me. Like I said that. I didn't say that. The girl literally said that. I know they heard it. She literally said, I don't know why that girl thinks people are jealous of her. And then she trailed off. And I got uncomfortable. And so I got up and I said, let me go down to the computer lab. You hear? And so I went down to the computer lab. And I was already feeling weird too, because when I came up from lunch, like I said, that thing happened with that inmate where he said, we don't want it, about the plate of food. So I was like, let me just go down to the computer lab. And so I went down to the computer lab and I found something to do. And while I was on my way down, heading up was the girl that I had the dream about. And so then she went to the unit by the young girl. And so when I was in the computer lab, I did whatever. I got up and went back up there. And she was standing next to the girl. And so was the older CO when I got back up. And the older CO started talking about touching. She kept saying stuff about touching. And so I got uncomfortable again. I said, let me go back down again. And I hadn't done what I needed to do anyways because I couldn't get into the computer. I had forgotten my password. And I know they saw all of this happen. So I went back down. I went into the computer or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, it just feels like things got weird because of whatever happened. Let me make a video about it. And so I made a video. Stupid me. I should have just let the thing go and not make a video about it. I made a video talking about it. And that was when things went to shit in the facility. Things started getting real bad in there. After, I kid you not, that's when it went to shit. And all of a sudden it was that I was saying everyone was jealous of me. The story changed and morphed into me saying I'm the one that said everyone's jealous of me. And I don't understand what's going on. Anyway, so that's what happened. My head is hurting me so bad. Thank God for these cameras, because they, as much as they don't like me or whatever, I know they saw that this is really what happened. Anyway, so that's what it's been. Like, ever since then, it's just been real bad in the facility. Like, just directed convo, and, like, even the inmates and stuff, like, seem to have real animosity, even worse than when they just found out about me. Like, it seems even worse with some of them, not all of them. Some of them still seem like themselves. It's this weird thing where some of them still seem real cool, and then some of them, it's like they have this, like, animosity towards me. It's terrible. My head's hurting me on. I keep hearing stuff about being vicious and when it's reactive abuse, any vicious reaction I've had, like, for instance, those dudes coming in randomly the other night in the gym and verbally assaulting me with directed convo when they looked terrible. So I was vicious and I had a reaction. Anyway, so that's really what it's been, y'all. I had to defend myself because I can't take the gaslighting with the targeting, and because you're by yourself in your solo dolo and you need something, like, I need the job, I have nothing. It's like I have to take abuse. It's so unfair. So anyways, and I'm playing victim. Anyway, so that's what's going on. That's literally what happened. And so it's just been, like, rough in the facility ever since then. And they've been utilizing, and I'm not crying, y'all. I know you hear it's anger. Like, there's no tears in my eyes. Like, I'm telling you, as much as I'm dealing with, like, it would take a lot to cry. I'm talking about physical. Like, you would literally probably have to, like, cut me, beat me. I'm not asking for it. But I'm just saying it would take some physical stuff to make me cry after everything I've been through. It's not a I want to cry thing. It's a I'm angry thing, and I'm exhausted. So it's like my voice is breaking because of it. I told y'all earlier I'm losing my voice. There's not a tear in sight, I'm telling you. And my head is throbbing so bad. Anyway, so, oh my God. Oh. Anyway, so that's really what it is, y'all, and that's what's made things get real gnarly up in there. Like, these last 2 weeks have been real hard. I'm like, thank the Most High PT started at least, so it's not like 5 days straight of 9-hour shifts sitting up under SEALs that don't care for me necessarily. Not all of them, but some of them, and my brain ticking and, whatever else is going on. It's like, it's a lot better now that I'm going to have shorter days, at least 3 days out of the week, thank the Most High. But then now today things got weird with the person that's supposed to be doing the PT with me. And I think it was a misunderstanding. I'm going to be careful with what I say because, again, these videos get me in trouble. And even though I'm just literally saying what my view or perception of the situation is, it seems to get me in big trouble. Like, my ass keeps getting kicked, and it's to the point where I could lose the job, and I can't afford to lose this job. I can't. So it is what it is. Anyway, things haven't really been too bad with her, despite all the awkward stuff that's happened with her and her husband and Dream and this and that. Like I said, the situation was started because of me, but it wasn't an intentional thing. It was completely unintentional. It started with her husband. Like I said, he and her deal with the PT for the facility. So, like, the police training and training the cadets and getting them prepared for police academy. She and her husband are, like, specialized in that, right? I think they were both I don't want to say wrong information. I know she was in the military. I don't know if he was. But they're both, like, experienced with that, and they deal with that sector of things, right? So before I even got to the facility, my counterpart, the other cadet that's in the neighboring island, towards the end of orientation started getting training. He started getting PT training. And so he was able to leave earlier, right? He was able to leave at 2:00. And I'm still sitting there for the full orientation all the way until 5:00. And we were actually done with a lot of the material. And so there was a day I was sitting there for like 2 hours with nothing to do. Right. And so, you know, they kept telling me, oh, PT training is going to start soon, but we have to get in touch with so-and-so. And, you know, from what I understand now, he's really busy. So apparently he's, you know, like he wears many hats. He's doing wildlife. He's doing this. He's doing that. I understand. I get it. At the time, I didn't know what was going on and I'm targeted. So there's a level of paranoia there where everything feels like it's targeting. They've been throwing at me for 3 years straight, you know, this false narrative of me being a home wrecker and me going after people's husbands and this and that. And so for me, I was just like wondering why I wasn't getting the PT. And I thought it had possibly something to do with the targeting, especially since the orientation was full of sensitization. But when I actually got in the facility and I asked the lieutenant about it, you know, again, asking about orientation, because at this point now I'm in the facility and I still haven't started PT training, because remember the PT test was coming up. I took it and I passed it at this point now. Yeah, I documented that. But back then the PT test to determine whether or not I would make it into police academy or not in the first place was up and coming. And so we needed the training for it. And so that cadet was getting the training. I wasn't getting it. And although I'm in shape, y'all, and I'm strong, I've always struggled with cardio. That's always been something I've struggled with. Like, it doesn't matter how fit I am. I've always been, I don't want to say bad at running. I'm a good runner. Like, I can run fast and everything. I'm powerful and strong. But the endurance, I've always struggled with that. Even at the top, at the most fit I've ever been when I was younger and playing basketball and constantly doing cardio, I've always struggled with cardio. So I was worried about that part of the PT test. I wasn't sure how I was going to do. You know, I was so determined to pass that I even drove down there to where I knew the test was being administered. And I took I did the run myself to see how I would do, right? But I wasn't getting the training. And so I was just trying to figure out why that wasn't happening. And I remember when I got into the facility, I asked the lieutenant, he was showing me around and letting me meet different people. I remember asking him about it, and he kind of gave me the same answer like what I was getting when I was over at the orientation. Oh, you know, we haven't, you know, gotten in contact with so-and-so yet, and, you know, we'll let you know what's going on. But this time he said, but let's go meet the wife. That's what he said, but let's go meet his wife after he said that. And so for me, PTSD kicked in. I was like, I wonder if this is happening because they feel like I'm a homewrecker. You know, it's a stupid, irrational thought. But it's, again, due to targeting and PTSD and constantly being bombarded with these false narratives. So I was just like, oh, my God, I wonder if that's what's going on, right? So anyway, they take me to meet the wife, and I met her. And I didn't know that she could have done the PT training as well. I didn't know anything. I was fresh-ass, new to the facility. I didn't know anything. But I met her, and after I met her, you know, I shortly after finally got in touch with the husband, right? But at this point, he was saying, you got this. You know, he said, we're not doing PT. He said, I know you got this. Just practice, whatever. So when he came around, though, when I actually finally did come into contact with him in the facility, I was acting so bazzity around him because I felt like, oh, my God, they probably think I'm a homewrecker or something, and that's why I didn't get the training. So I was just acting awkward and bazzity and stupid, and they started flying the fly in my face. I will never forget the day when that happened. He came in to do a fire drill in the unit I was in with the CO I was sitting under, and he sat in the chair where the CO was, and he was going through the book, and he was there for a while, and he was kind of talking to me, and I was just acting so bassity because I know everyone's watching me. I know I didn't get the training like the other cadet did, and I'm like, oh my God, I wonder if it's because they think I'm a homewrecker. You know, they're humming at me so bad, I feel so nauseous, and the headache I had is 10 times worse now. It's just terrible what they're doing. Anyways, so, and all I'm doing is speaking facts. This is how it works when you're targeted. Hear the REV campaign. Life of a target. Anyway, so, I was just acting so nervous and bazzity, and they started flying the fly in my face, and then I noticed after that day, several times they'll bring him around me and he'll just sit nearby and be looking in his phone and the fly will be flying by. So I said, okay, this is turning into something. I said, I didn't want to make a video about these irrational feelings I'm feeling, but let me make a video and defend myself. And so I made a video so they wouldn't think I was liking her husband, explaining what the reaction was. And then after I made that video, I started seeing her more, right? She wasn't being nasty to me or anything. She was being very friendly. And actually, she seemed more open after I made the video, like not open as in like trying to talk to me and befriend me, but like she seemed more, I don't know, I think maybe it was like they understood why I acted the way I acted, but still I was seeing her more. Like I noticed they kept putting her in my path, it seems like. I don't want to bear false witness, that's what I said. I started seeing her like way more after I made that video. And so I as I started seeing her more, I don't know, I guess an attraction built. What really happened was, first of all, again, I started seeing her more. And then I remember there was this day where actually right after the PT test, I was in the main part of the facility right after I took the test and I passed. And she had come in that day and she asked me how I did. And as she came in with the dog and everything, and she had just gotten a fresh haircut, and she had her face made up this day, and she had the dog, and I don't know, I just thought it was a cool aesthetic. I think that's what it was. I've been honest about it. Like, I like men. I'm not attracted to females. This is the second female in my entire life that I've had any attraction to. I'm not a liar. And actually, they've been in my brain, so they know that despite all these awkward reactions I've had, they've seen the activity in my brain. That's why they're running with this right now. She's literally the only female in the whole 2 years they've been in my brain that they've seen any activity with. It's been men. And actually, it's so embarrassing. Sometimes I don't do it anymore. I've trained my mind not even to daydream about men anymore. But there have been times where I was daydreaming about a guy and then they'll make my ear ring. The air tinnitus with the technology. I'm like, oh shoot, embarrassing. You know, I catch myself. But even before I knew, this is the key evidence, I keep saying this. Before I knew the technology was in my head, I was daydreaming about a man, a Hispanic guy that I used to have a crush on. And that's how I realized the technology was in my head, because they played against me on the pool game with his name. So they know full well it's an isolated incident. They just want to run with it. You know, they don't like me. You know, they've been holding on to this damn shit and not letting it go for so long. I think hoping to find anything because they don't like me. So anyways, that's what it was though. I'm just being honest about when I guess whatever attraction started. It was that day when she asked me how I did. And she had the fresh haircut, and she had her face done up, and she had the dog, and then also too, I had seen her. I was working out. Remember I told you they kept putting her in my path after I made the video about her husband. I had worked out at the gym one day, and this was one of those days I think where I was off for the vacation, for the Christmas vacation. I had like a whole week off. And so I remember I went to the gym and I was working out and going ham in the gym and stuff. And I remember I went to the shopping center to take care of some business, and I noticed I saw the corrections officer car rolling through the shopping center. And so I went to cross across the road. Actually, I stopped because I saw that it was I got Bassity. I didn't even see it was her. I just saw it was one of my coworkers, and it's like, oh shoot, I got Bassity. And so I stopped and kind of hid like a little bit behind the car to give her a chance to drive by, and she kind of stopped and let me cross the road. And so I crossed the road in front of her car, and I realized it was her. And then I had already, at this point now, been seeing her more and more. So I saw her that time, and so that happened. That thing where I saw her outside of work, and then the time when I saw her where she had the haircut and stuff, and she had the dog. I'm just being honest. I'm not a liar. Like, I'm an honest person. I'm as real as they come. I'm just letting you know when the attraction started. It was that time when I saw her in the shopping center, and then also that time after I had actually taken the PT test and passed, and she just stopped and asked me how I did. She didn't do anything. She wasn't coming on to me. She was acting like a normal person, but I just saw her and I thought that the aesthetic was cool. I think that's what it was. I thought that her aesthetic was cool and it was different. That's all it was. I hadn't ever seen anyone that had that, because she has, like, to me, I think what it is what would seem like Afrocentric features, but then she has like cut blonde hair, and then she has a dog. So I don't know. I just think I'm like into art, and I can see the beauty in things, and I think maybe that's what it was with her specifically. I'm just being honest. I'm an honest person. Anyway, so my head is really hurting me bad, guys. So that was where that started. And I didn't expect it to be anything else. It's not like I had a craving to be with her. I know she's married with children. I don't like women. I like men, even though that attraction was there. I'm not a liar. I'm being honest with you. Even with the attraction, the one other female in my life that I had an attraction to years ago when I was in rehab in my early 20s, even with her, I didn't have a craving to be with her or a desire to be with her. It was just more so like I can admire the beauty in this person. They're a unique looking person and I can see that they're a beautiful person. And that girl was a model. She was actually a model. She was mulatto and totally different aesthetic, totally different look. But something about her just had an attraction to me. Like I just found it attractive. Anyway, I like men. I want to get married. I want to have children. I don't know how many times I have to say this. I wasn't trying to get with her. I didn't expect them to see the dream that I have. I didn't expect to have the dream. In fact, I still question it to this day because they do dream manipulation. And the timing of things is kind of odd to me too. I've talked about this already. For 2 years, they've been in my brain. All of a sudden, I start working at the facility, and then this thing with this CEO. It's just the time is kind of funny to me. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of funny. But anyways, so that's what it was. I can just be honest about my feelings towards it and the fact that there's tech in my head and all of it's kind of odd to me, the timing, but it is what it is. I'm just being honest about it. So anyways, they saw the dream. I didn't expect it. You can see I was like shocked. I was sitting outside. It's not like I slid up to her. The way they're painting it, it's so ridiculous. They're making it seem like I'm coming on to her and I'm sliding up there and saying, hey girl, let's go to the back room, or grabbing on her. I've been avoiding this lady like the plague because I think the thing is so fucking humiliating. I have been avoiding her. And anytime she comes around and says anything to me, I'm usually like ducking in the closet, not to use that term, right? But I'm usually ducking off in the closet or wherever I can duck off. That's typically what it's been. And I actually only recently started getting more comfortable with her after doing PT with her and after, sitting up under her all day, even though things turn bad for half of the day. Like I started getting more comfortable with her. It just depends on how a person interacts with me and me being around you and stuff. And when I worked out with her and stuff, it's like I got a comfortable vibe. So I felt a little bit more comfortable with her. She kind of just reminded me of like an old PE coach or something like that, or a trainer or whatever. I've always been into athletics. And so that's just created an environment of where I didn't feel like I needed to duck off and hide anymore. I felt comfortable. Anyway, so my head is hurting me so bad, y'all. So that's what it was with her, though. That's how things started with her. That's how that was created. And it wasn't me trying to come on to her, get next to her. It was literally they saw the dream. I wasn't aware of it until I sat outside for lunch and they sent with the technology. I talked about this in one of the videos. That's one of the other videos I made defending myself. They showed a person holding a jaguar's face and feeding the jaguar something, and in the dream, that's what happened. Like she was in the dream. That's literally what happened. I talked about it in one of my videos. We were at a party for some reason. And she and I somehow ended up in the kitchen and she seemed a little bit tipsy. And so I grabbed water in a cup and I just grabbed her face and started feeding her the water. This is what happened in the dream. And so I remember seeing like a similar scene to what I remembered from the dream in this clip that they sent with the technology trying to be funny. And so I remember doing a double take, like, what the heck? I remembered it freaking me out. And then when I went back in the facility, it's like they had already seen the dream and knew about it because they saw my reaction to that clip that was sent with the technology and it resembled the dream. And so they were all moving funny in there about it. And that was when I made another video about the job. That was that day I made a video about it because I was like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. It wasn't me coming onto it. It wasn't like I said, hey girl, I had a dream about you. You want to go in the back room so I can feed you? Like, no, I would have never said anything. They saw it and had a reaction and I made a video about it. And that's where it turned into this thing with her. Oh, my head is hurting me so bad. And then they keep inserting her husband like I'm trying to come on to her. That's not what it is. Y'all saw the dream and it started turning into something in there. I would have never said shit about it. What the heck? So anyways, I've had interactions with her though, and she's been pretty normal and cool about it. I think it's all just entertainment, right? It really didn't get gnarly and nasty until today. And I think it was just a misunderstanding. I really do. It's like several things happened today. I think just made things shit hit the fan. Y'all, let me get some air. My head is hurting. They're humming on me like crazy. I'm coming back. Let me get some air. And I want to listen to what I've said so far. All right, y'all, I'm back. I actually laid down to rest my head because it was throbbing. It felt like it was splitting. I haven't had a headache that bad in a long time. And I ended up falling asleep for hours, y'all. Actually, I have to get up for PT in a couple hours. At 4 o'clock, I have to get up. But I wanted to just finish this video. Actually, my head is still splitting. I woke up feeling a little bit better. The headache had subsided quite a bit. I just went to use the bathroom and it just started to slowly but surely come back on, like full throttle. And of course, I think I'm hearing the hum in the background, but if I am hearing it, it's at a very low level. It's not as bad as when I first went to sleep. But my head feels terrible, y'all, and I feel nauseous. It's horrible. I still have to get through PT, and it's so much cardio. I don't even know if I'll be able to pull one push-up out because my upper body is so sore. I work out, like I told y'all, actively in the gym, obviously. But my main workouts are leg workouts. I don't really do upper body like that because I'm naturally built there. And actually, my whole body's naturally built. But upper body, it's just I've never had to really work it out. So I've been more so focused on my legs, and I do like minimal upper body work. And this PT, some of the cardio is push-ups, a lot of push-ups and stuff like that. So I'm super sore, in addition to just my head hurting and being dehydrated. And, I'm going to push through the PT, of course, but it's just, it's going to be rough. So I'm trying to hurry up and get through this video real quick, y'all, but I wanted to finish the video. So like I was saying, I was talking about what happened today, and what I believe to have been several misunderstandings that led to some really harsh, directed convo and what seemed like theater. So when I first got on, they sent me up to the unit and they actually put me underneath the CO that I had the dream about. I have not sat with her since I first started working in the facility a few months ago. I had one time when I sat under her, and that was before the thing with her and her husband started, right? That was before I had the reaction with her husband. This was when they were still telling me that they were going to get in touch with him whenever they get a chance. Excuse me. Get a chance and let me know when PT would start, etc., etc. So there was no awkwardness with her at this point, right? And there was no anything dream or anything like that. I sat up under her for a day. But typically she's not on a unit. It happened. She's a CO. But she's a senior CO. And she's been there so long that she has her own special assignment. So typically she's over the rec yard, which is basically like the recess for the prisoners. And she'll watch and monitor them when they're in the rec yard, which is a yard full of different things that they can use to work out or play basketball, etc., just be outside. So that's typically her assignment. And then once in a blue, they'll throw her over a unit if they're short-staffed. So yesterday, apparently they were short-staffed. They decided to throw her over a unit. Them putting me under her, I believe, might have been like some sort of, I don't know, because they know that's going to be awkward. They had literally, since the thing with her and her husband started that I talked about in the last few videos, they have not been putting me with her. And typically she works rec anyways. But I'm pretty sure in the course of the last 2 months, there has been at least one time where she might have been put on a unit and they didn't put me with her. They know not to put me with her because, things have been awkward with everything that's happened. But now I did PT with her, right? So I'm seeing her 3 days out of the week in the mornings. And I guess they felt okay to put me under her. I'm not really sure what it was, but this was one of my long days. Remember I told you Tuesdays and Thursdays are going to be those long days where I'm going to work the full 9 hours and get off at 5 p.m. and have to sit underneath a CO. And so to put me under her for so long, and they know that even though now she and I are doing PT together, there's still, the thing that happened with she and I, especially the dream thing. They know that the brain ticking thing happens with me. I just felt like I was being punished. As soon as I got in there, I was like, why are they punishing me? I remember thinking that in my head as I was going up, not because I have an issue with her, but just because they know how my brain works when I sit underneath a CO for 9 hours straight. And it's kind of this thing where I think they just take turns because, this is apparently a part of my quote unquote punishment, having to sit underneath the CO and my brain, my thoughts, projecting with the neuromonitoring technology to all those that are around me. So knowing that this thing with her and I have happened and the dream thing and the awkwardness or whatever, putting me under her for 9 hours straight, it just kind of, it almost felt like a punishment. I was like, did it put me under her, this CO? I was like, that's interesting. But anyway, I went up, I was like, okay, I didn't feel as angst about it because she and I, like I said, did the PT together Monday morning and it wasn't that bad, right? The vibe, and my anxiety about the situation, I had started feeling comfortable with her. But I was just like, oh boy, I hope this is not going to be some sort of day ladled with theater, because even after the PT, they do this weird thing with the technology where they like to do reverse psychology, right? They'll see what's going on. I don't know who runs the technology. It's like several different entities involved in my targeting, right? And it's this collaborative effort when you're targeted. But with the technology, whoever's running it, a lot of it's AI, and they'll program the AI to send certain things to you with the shadow networking AI software. Remember, they hack all your technological devices and can send you things to sensitize you. So anyways, with the technology, as soon as the PT was done and my day was done at work, remember I get off at 1 p.m. once I do the PT early in the morning, I noticed with the technology, they kept sending subliminals about her and I and how she's, like she's trying to take me in, and like I'm this stray lost pup that nobody wants, and she's taking me in under her wing, and sending stupid dumb shit like that. And ever so often too throwing these subliminals about she and I having like this covert underhanded flirtation or relationship or whatever. They know what they're doing, because pushing that type of false narrative while I'm being watched by all these people, it's psychological warfare, y'all. And that's psychology they're using. They know if she sees that now and all these other people, it's going to put a pressure on her to move a certain way with me to prove that that's not true. Like it's this thing they do with the technology. They've done it with several people, and it's this thing that they do because they know that that's going to create this thing within the person and make them move a certain way with me. I done peeped it a long time ago. It's a diabolical program, and it's all about the mind. It's psychological warfare. So whenever they send me the stupidness, I try to take it off quick, and I just shake my head and laugh, because I'm just like, I know what they're doing. I keep saying I know what they're doing. But I think it successfully, I think it creates this thing. Y'all, my supervisor is calling. Give me a minute. I'll call you guys, but my supervisor is calling. Y'all, sorry about that. That was the supervisor for my night job. Recently, I had to request a change in hours due to PT. And so this week my schedule's different. And typically I work tonight, and I don't now because of the change in schedule. And so I don't know if on that end there was a little confusion, but that's what that call was about. So sorry about that, y'all. But anyway, y'all, like I was explaining, it's just a psychological warfare, reverse psychology type activity, right? These are the things they do, because they're well aware of the fact that she's watching me in addition to everyone else who has access to these cameras. And so you sending that type of narrative obviously is going to put a pressure on her to now prove like, wait, that's not what's going on. And so, she'll start moving a certain kind of way. I hate this program. It's all mental, I'm telling you. Even with the people that are involved in my life, no matter what capacity it is that they're involved. Anyway, so I noticed they had already started doing that. So I believe maybe that's why they had put me under her too. Maybe, just, I don't know, really. But it did feel like a punishment, I'm going to be honest with you. Because just knowing the situation and the circumstances and knowing how my brain works when I sit under somebody for 9 hours straight, it felt like a punishment. But I was like, at this point, not as angst about it as I would have been prior to doing PT with her. Because like I said, I had started getting comfortable with her. So I went up there and I was late. I've been late often. I don't have a car. I'm actually in the process of getting one now, y'all. Thank the Most High. And so it's difficult. I share a car with the people in my close circle, and then, needing to do better myself with getting up on time. It's not even getting up on time. I get up on time. It's getting ready and being ready to hop in the car and go, and then the car sometimes isn't here on time. It's just different things. I've been late, and working on that. Something I'm working on. The good thing about PT is I'm up super early, and so I'm fully ready, basically super early, and so I get on there on time. Like I noticed on Monday I was on time for the first time in a long time. So things are going to get better as far as the time goes. But that's really, to me, out of anything, the most negative aspect of my work performance. Every time I work underneath a CEO, I'm asking them, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? Oh, nothing at the moment. But then I'm hearing like complaints behind my back. I just think it has everything to do with it being me. But regardless, as I'm going off on a tangent and not meaning to. So I got up there by her, and as soon as I got up there, she asked me, she greeted me, and then she said, wait, you're just getting here? I said, yeah. And she said, 10 push-ups. I said, what? It was still this kind of joking, kind of camaraderie ship going on at this point. Things hadn't gotten weird yet. And she said, 10 push-ups, you're late, 10 push-ups. So I gave her 10 push-ups, and, I was like, wait, are you serious? Laughing and joking, because I didn't know if she was serious or not. She was. So I gave her the 10 push-ups. And I sat down, and the day started to begin. So I made sure right away, as soon as I sat down, to start asking her, what can I do to help, this and that, trying to, because the supervisor has spoken to me, telling me that, some of the trainers were complaining that when I sit under them, I don't do anything, I just draw and this and that. And I said, well, what am I supposed to do in those times in between when nothing's going on? I said, because, in those moments when we've already walked the floor and we've already patrolled and everything's calm in the unit, my coworker is on the computer and on their phone, and I'm sitting there with nothing to do. He said, oh, read a book. So in my head, I'm like, well, what's the difference between reading a book and drawing a picture? It's still me doing something to pass the time. So I didn't understand that, but I was just like, I said, okay, I won't draw anymore. And I'm not trying to like buck up against the supervisors. I'm already in a vicarious position as it is, but I'm just saying I feel like things are extra hard on me because it's me. I'm telling you. Like some of the SEALs have already slipped up and told me the other cadets had their phone in there. So I think it's this extra strict thing with me because again, it's me. But anyways, so I just have to be on my P's and Q's. I have to like make sure I'm, as much as every time I sit under someone, ask them, how can I help? How can I help? I need to be even extra about everything, like to just make sure it's like very clear and evident that I'm doing things. So anyways, I got up there by her and I was just making sure to ask her, like, what can I do to help? What can we do? She said, oh, well, I already went on the floor. I already did this and that. And I said, okay, so I said, so nothing right now? She said, nothing right now. So she was on the computer doing stuff. And she made a phone call or whatever. I sat there. I didn't pull out my book or anything. So I straight up asked her, I said, hey, the CEO just talked to me about drawing. I said, in moments like now where there's nothing to do and you're on the computer, what can I do for entertainment? And she said, I said, the CEO told me something about reading a book. What's the difference between reading a book and drawing? And so there was an inmate in there at the time on the other side of the unit talking to a corrections officer, and he said, well, if you read a book, you learn something. And she said, there you go, aha. She was like, there you go. And I said, yes, that's true. That's facts. You do learn something. But we're talking about in the capacity of the job and what's allowed from what's not allowed. Yes, I would read and more beneficial to read so I can learn something. But we're talking about what I'm allowed to do here on the job. So as far as passing the time goes, what's the difference? Anyway, y'all, so sorry I have to quiet down. As usual, I got in problems for making these videos. Anyway, so, I was just specifying that, yeah, although reading can teach you something, that's not the point. The point is I'm being told I'm not doing anything in moments where there's nothing to do, and it's because I'm drawing. That's where the main sense of contention is coming from. And so I said, what's the difference between drawing and reading a book? It's still not work related. And so then she started telling me, well, I could go on and read the policies. I've already read all the policies in orientation. The last time I had this conversation with one of the other supervisors, she told me go through the binder of policies. I realized it was all the policies we went through in orientation. So she told me, she allowed me to use the computer though. And she moved to the side and went on her phone and she told me I could sign into my account and read some of the rules and regulations and those policies. And when I went through, I realized, again, those were policies we went over in orientation. So you have to understand these are very long, technical writing type policies. So you can imagine how arduous and tedious it is to read through those, right? You can imagine that feels like a punishment. But then too, these are things I've already gone over in orientation. It was already rough going through it in orientation, but we got through it, right? So it's like these are things I've read already. But anyways, I was still just grateful that she allowed me to even sit on the computer because, she could have just kind of put her hands up, like figure it out type thing. And she allowed me to get on the computer. Things were still cool between she and I. The environment hadn't turned hostile or strange yet, right? So anyways, I got on and I just started going through the policies and I realized I couldn't focus. Y'all know I have ADD. Read the banner. Talk with Sharifa living with Asperger's and ADD. First of all, I was looking and realizing I had read all these policies already in orientation, but I was still just to pass the time going to read them, but I couldn't even focus. I was hearing all this noise in the background. Of course, there's constant noise, people passing back and forth throughout the unit. And, at certain points she was on the phone. And so it was just too much going on and I could not focus. It's already, like I said, this very boring document, but then it's also things I've read already and gone over already. And then I'm hearing all this background noise. I just could not focus. And so I said, let me just give her back the computer and go sit over there and I'll just kind of chill today. And that's what she told me anyway. She said, why don't you just sit and keep your head up today? She said, instead of doing anything. So I was like, okay, this is going to be a long day, but let me get through it. So she went back over to the computer and I sat in the seat, twiddling my thumbs. And of course, my brain started ticking and her name started popping in my head. Now, mind you, this isn't specific to her, although I've had moments where her name pops in my head due to sensitization and what was created from the dream thing. I've talked about this in prior videos. This literally happens with every CEO that I sit under. At some point in time during the day, at some point in time during the day, usually multiple times during the day, their name starts popping in my head. And really how often it happens really just determines on how anxious I am underneath the CO, right? But it literally happens with every CO I sit under. I remember the dude with the beard that I made the video about, the part 2 villainization video, one of the videos that's created all this retribution I'm getting now. I remember when his name was popping in my head when he was roasting me and doing directed convo. I remembered him, he kept going and making all these kind of annoying noises whenever the name would pop in my head. You have to understand how irritating it is when somebody's name is popping in your head continuously while they're roasting you. It's like the last thing you want is their name popping in your head, and there's not really anything you can do about it. It's psychological. The same thing even happens at night when my brother and I work the night shift together, and him and I are traveling to our destination. His name is popping in my head. It's weird, annoying, it's psychological. It's just a part of the torture. So anyways, it's just all a part of this psychological torture. So anyways, y'all, I'm trying to remember what I was saying. So that's what started happening. Her name started ticking into my head, and I thought it was just so humiliating and embarrassing. And so I remember kind of thinking, well, what can I do to move around? So I was like, what can I do to move around, so that I'm not sitting here and dealing with her name ticking in my head. And so what I decided to do was ask her, well, can I go walk on the floor? Because when I've been under other COs, they have sent me out on the floor by myself, even senior COs. But she was being more anal and like to the rules. And so she was like, well, you can't go on the floor by yourself. And she said, so do you want to go do a check right now? And I said, oh, well, if you have to come, no. I said, I don't want to make you have to get up. And she said, no, it's no problem. That's my job. She said, let's go. So we went to do a check, and we stopped at every unit, and I just peeped in and checked on every detainee on the floor, right, on both levels. And she was kind of just in the background. So she was being very helpful, and, she was in a jovial mood. And like I said, things were normal at this point. Things were going good at this point. And it still felt like that energy that I had felt when she and I did the training or the PT together. It didn't feel like anything strange was going on or like there was any hostile environment. So we went back to the unit at this point, right, y'all? And so when we went back to the unit, she sat down and she went back on the computer, and I'm sitting there with nothing to do pretty much, at that point. So I remember her saying, just keep your head up. And so this is what I tried to do. And so I just put my head up and closed my eyes. Obviously I wasn't sleeping, but it's awkward to just keep your eyes open. You just did a check. Everyone's in their cell, right? So she's on her phone or on her computer. I don't want to just like sit there staring, in her direction, or, I don't know what to do with myself. So I'm sitting there, and I just sat up and I closed my eyes, right? So she stood up and she started having this conversation with the neighboring CO. I've explained this in prior videos, how these units work. And some of them are connected, and it's like a shared office space. And so one end you have one CO, and on the other end you have the other CO. So she did start doing directed convo, and all of the COs do this. I believe this is all a part of the targeting, and I think they're trained to do this at this point, where you go to different places and they do directed convo, right? So she did start having directed convo with the CO on the other end, but it wasn't malicious, and it hadn't taken a low level yet. It hadn't gotten to the level that it eventually did get to during the course of the day, later in the day, right? When things got weird, where I believe certain misunderstandings happened, and it felt like she got more, I don't want to use the word malicious, but more harsh with the theater and with the directed convo. So initially she and him were saying things back and forth, which happens often, like I said, with the COs that I'm under, where they'll have conversation, they'll have things directed at me in it, right? That's what directed convo refers to in the community, the targeted individual community. So she was doing directed convo, and it really wasn't anything too major, but still, again, just throwing hints at, somebody that's getting into conflict, and somebody that's, kind of lying on people or being aggressive. And she didn't say anything about lying this time, as a matter of fact. She's done that directed convo before, like within the course of last week, sometime during the course of last week. But it wasn't anything about lying. It was more so about being aggressive and getting in fights and, that kind of stuff like that. And different things she was talking about, like this fight. Apparently there's this new, it seems like, girl that's in the facility. And so they'll be talking about real life situations, but there'll be directed convo in it. And so they were talking about an interaction with her and another CEO, and there was slight directed convo within the conversation, but again, it wasn't anything major and malicious. She was moving normal. She was all next to me in the unit. She wasn't doing the thing where she's pinching her nose or acting like I stink. Things were normal, right? So a little bit later in the day, I kept trying to find reasons to leave just so I could get a break because my brain was ticking so freaking bad. So I kept trying to find reasons to leave. I kept saying, well, can I go down to the computer lab and print out some reading material? And that was when she told me to go into the account and read the rules and regulations instead. Then I was asking her, can I go and get an ID made? Because I truly did lose my ID the other day. She called down. She said, oh, he's not there. He's not picking up. So it's just like constantly I was trying to find reasons to leave. And she kept like kind of finding reasons to, say nah, And so I said, well, can I go stand outside and get some air? She said, outside? You're leaving the unit? And I said, no, I just want to stand outside and get some air. I said, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to stay in the area. And so then that was when she said, okay. She said, just as long as you're not leaving the unit. I said, no, I'm not. No problem. So I went outside and I stood and I was getting air, right? And I came back inside after I got some air. It started raining and stuff. So she was still being very anal and on top of me, but not in like a malicious way. It was more so like it was reminiscent of like a drill sergeant type of thing. But it was still like this camaraderie ship there. It hadn't gotten gnarly yet, right? And she wasn't acting annoyed and, all these things like that. So one of the things that was talked about, one of the other CEOs was telling her about one of the detainees in our unit. And he was saying about how the guy is, and it's a white guy, unfortunately. Remember, there's sensitization with white people because of the offensive stuff I've shared in my car in Florida. But anyways, he was talking about how the guy has a hearing aid, he's elderly, and how he be acting like he can't hear. But whenever he says lunch, he could say lunch super soft and the dude will fly out the room. All of a sudden, the hearing aid is working. So that thing cracked me up. And it's just the way he said it. He's kind of like a funny dude. And he was doing a lot of directed convo too. Actually, to be honest with you, the directed convo coming from him was a bit more harsh than from her. And that's happening because of something that happened with him. I know why that's happening. Something I talked about in my video with him. When I walked by him in the hallway and he said good afternoon. I said good afternoon back to him, and he said, you to act some time-ish. And so I talked about it in my video, and it was something I shouldn't have talked about, really. I only talked about it because I'm just thinking to myself, well, the reason I'm acting some time-ish is because of the thirsty narrative. It's a long story, y'all. You'll have to check out the part 1 and part 2 and part 3, villainization of the target videos that I told y'all I'm getting all this retribution for. That was why I briefly mentioned that thing that happened with him. And ever since then, he's been doing a lot of harsh directed convo. I think that like irritated him and might have created like whatever. I don't know why. To me, it wasn't really that big of a deal. There's something I shouldn't even talked about. It's so irrelevant. I don't even know why I talked about it. Anyway, so that's what's going on with him. I've been getting some harsh directed convo from him ever since then. But with her, she wasn't really being as harsh with the directed convo. But in this moment where he's talking about the CEO, he wasn't doing any directed convo, and he wasn't being harsh with his words. And despite whatever stupidness he's been saying these last few days as directed convo, he genuinely is a funny guy, right? And so the way he was saying it had me cracking up. And it actually kind of reminded me of this incident that happened with a student that I was working with years ago, y'all. I'm talking when I was in my mid-20s, right here on this island, before I became an actual teacher, and when I was still a para-educator or a para-professional. I've worked in education for a number of years, y'all. That's why this situation is so unfortunate what happened to me. But the Most High does everything for a reason. I truly believe that, right? But anyways, back then when I was working as a para-educator and I was working with one of the younger students, I at one point in time was a special education paraeducator. So I worked with students that had IEPs, and some of them had learning disabilities, etc. And I remember this one student, he was like, I think autistic and unresponsive, right? Whenever you talk to him and tell him to do stuff, he will be unresponsive. And so the teacher was telling his I forgot what she was to him. This was another person that worked with him one-on-one, similar to what I did. And so she was just kind of, I think it was a reading tutor, if I'm not mistaken, but kind of just telling her about him. And, this funny story that happened with him the other day where, he acts unresponsive and like he doesn't understand what's going on. But when she went to the front of the class and started talking about chocolate and the fact that they were going to have treats, all of a sudden he hopped up and said chocolate, and acted like he could talk and understand. And so the story reminded me so bad of that student. It just had me cracking up. It was just something about it was so funny to me. So when he said it, I was cracking up. I know they saw me laughing. And then moments later, it was like almost an hour later, he came into the cell right? And not to sell the unit, excuse me, to go on his side of the unit. And when he came in to go on his side of the unit and I saw him, I remembered what he said and I just started cracking up again, like really cracking up. And so after I started cracking up, I noticed that she didn't do anything. She was sitting there, right? But after I had that moment where I cracked up, it would seem like random cracking up, but I was actually cracking up because he came into the unit and I remembered what he said. I asked her, I said, hey, is it okay if for Friday I come late to PT? And she was just like, you could do whatever you want for PT, which was a weird response because she was just now being so anal on me about everything else, like this drill sergeant. And typically with PT, she's like very anal about it. And the response was kind of strange, the way she answered. And she seemed like she at first didn't answer me. She kind of hesitated and then she answered. And so I said, okay. And the reason I asked her that is because my schedule is just now regulating. I had to change it up to match up with PT. And there's one day on the schedule that still needs to change. That doesn't match up with PT on Friday. But typically she would have been anal on me about the time and late for what? And isn't that like the same way she was moving with me all day? And it was just like this, the response was lackluster and kind of strange. And she even had hesitated. So I don't know if she thought I was cracking up at her. I wasn't. I was cracking up and I, again, try not to make assumptions and assume things. But the reason I'm saying this is several things that happened after that moment. So that was the first thing that I noticed. Then one of the CEOs that works in the medical building came up to pick up one of the detainees and he gave her a flower. And he said, and that's random, she's married, so obviously he's not flirting with her. And you don't have CEOs just randomly walking around giving people flowers. That's just not how that works. And so he handed her the flower and he said, hey, this is a flower for you, a flower for a flower. And she said, oh, thank you. And she took the flower from him and then he went into the unit, right? And so I don't know, I just got a vibe like they felt like I was laughing at her or something. It's just the vibe I'm getting because that was when the energy really changed in there. I'm telling you, I'm very intuitive and I can feel things out. And so then I noticed I after we went on the floor and dealt with some stuff, I said to her, hey, I'm going to go to lunch. She said, okay. She didn't even answer me. She didn't say okay. That's what it was that also felt off. She didn't say okay. She just kind of opened the sally port and let me leave. So I thought it was strange. She was just moving like different after that, like where I burst out laughing. And so I was like, I wonder if they feel like I was laughing at her or something like that. Because of the whole him giving her a flower and calling her a flower and her kind of becoming what felt like distant. After that moment, I was just like, I wonder if, and I said, I was just laughing at that guy. I said, and it's not a race thing either. I said, I'm just laughing at the fact that, they said he was unresponsive to them calling him, and then when they said food, he popped out the side. Just thought that was hilarious. I said, the dude's hilarious that said it. I said, that's why I was laughing. I said, it's not a race thing, and I don't think she would be reacting like that to that, it being a race thing. Definitely don't think that's what it was. So I just feel like it was like they all felt like it was this thing where I was sitting there laughing at her something. I'm not sure what it was, but it was just a complete misunderstanding. That was where things first started getting kind of strange. So anyway, I went down for lunch to the computer lab and I was sitting there and then I noticed with the technology, they kept sending videos, trying to add things on again, the psychological, about when you're trying not to laugh, when you're sitting there and you're trying not to laugh and sending stupidness like that. And, I had just had that moment where I was sitting there and I cracked up and I was trying to stop myself from cracking up. And then things kind of got weird in the unit. So I was like, look at them trying to stir stuff up now is what I felt like, So I just passed the stupidness. Excuse me, y'all, let me fix myself. I'm in a lot of pain. Oh my God. So sore, y'all, from the last PT that I did. I need to actually get to sleep because I have to get up in 3 hours and I'm in so much pain. Anyway, so that was where the start of things getting gnarly in the unit. The energy changing in there, right? So when I finally came back from lunch, I just noticed that she seemed different. It wasn't the same energy from earlier. I wouldn't say she seemed standoffish, but she seemed distant. And like she didn't care as much, if that makes sense. She just seemed distant is all. She didn't say anything to me. She didn't do anything crazy. I don't want them to say I'm lying on people. I'm just telling you my perception of the situation. She just seemed distant, right? So anyways, I remember still she was answering me though. It's not like, I'm asking her questions and she's ignoring me. She just seemed distant. So I remember the day continued on, right? And then I remember shortly after me getting back from lunch, I just looked on. I was just looking again for something that I could do in the meantime, since there was nothing to do. I even asked her, is there anything I can help with at the moment? She said no. I remember looking on the sheet and trying to figure out how I can figure out where each detainee worked, because some of the detainees work and have jobs within the facility. And I was taught this before. You can see it on the count sheet. And I had looked in the category earlier on the count sheet where it's supposed to say where the person works, to answer a question that I had gotten when the phone rang, because the main CO, the same girl that I had the dream about, she was by the door dealing with something. And so I ran to answer the phone for her. And so someone in the facility that was asking about one of the detainees. And so she was asking me, where does he work? And so from what I had been taught in the past, I looked on the count sheet in the area where I know it to say where they're employed. And instead of seeing like one of the areas where they could be employed, I saw INS in all caps. So I was like, I don't know what this means. I've never seen this before. And so I answered her. I said, INS. And she said, that can't be where he works. That's something, something. I said, okay, hold on. Let me ask the CO. So I asked her, I said, hey, where does so-and-so work? She said, kitchen. I said, okay, thanks. And so I went back on the phone and I told the lady what she said, right? So now fast forward to where we're at now, way later in the day. And, like I said, that initial, what I believe to be misunderstanding happened. And then me coming back from lunch and her seeming distant. Again, I don't want it to be like I'm in these videos lying about people. This was my perception of the situation. She wasn't saying anything disrespectful. It's not like she was ignoring me or, being hostile towards me. It wasn't anything like that. She just seemed distant to how she was earlier. I'm intuitive, and that's what I was picking up on. So I asked her, just trying to make conversation, and also too just trying to learn instead of seeming like I'm sitting there doing nothing while she was on the computer. I just said, hey, I just have a quick question. I said, I know that on the count sheet you can figure out where the detainees work. I said, but earlier you told me that so-and-so works in the kitchen, but on the count sheet it says INS. And so she said, so I wasn't bringing it up to argue with her. I was actually bringing it up for an educational moment and just so I wouldn't be sitting there staring into space. So she said, she said it couldn't have been him. She said it couldn't have been so-and-so, the last name. She said, there's no way that I told you he works in the kitchen. I said, you did. I said, remember earlier when the person called and you were by the door and I asked you where does so-and-so work and you said the kitchen? And she said, it couldn't have been him. It had to have been a different detainee. I'm telling, she said, I don't know which detainee you're talking about, but it couldn't have been that one. He's immigration status or whatever she was saying. And she was explaining to me that's what the INS stands for. And I said, well, maybe it was a misunderstanding. I said, because I definitely told you this specific inmate and you told me kitchen. She said, it could not have been him. So she started getting a little bit like standoffish about it. And I was trying to talk to her very softly because I kind of already felt like the energy in there had changed. And so I said, I'm telling you, maybe you didn't hear me good, but that's what you said. And she said, okay, nurse, if that's what you think happened. And she pinched her nose. And typically when they start pinching their nose and rubbing their face and stuff, that's an indicator that I'm either annoying them or they're like insinuating that I'm lying. Because remember, it's a false narrative that my breath stinks. So if it's a situation where they're trying to insinuate that I'm lying or I'm doing, I guess, a Sharifa thing, a target thing that irritates them, they'll start to pinch on their through That was the first time throughout the course of the whole day that I had seen her do that, right? I've even done PT with her. Like I said, she didn't do it while I was doing PT with her. She was acting normal and friendly. So it's like, oh boy, that really bothered me. I could have just let it go. But I'm so used to people calling me a liar when I'm not a liar that I'm very anal about that. Whenever somebody insinuates that I'm lying or something happened that I'm saying happened, they're saying it didn't happen, I'm so scarred from people calling me a liar that I adamantly want to prove that what I'm saying is true. I've even had this moment with my sister, my younger sister. This is why I document everything, because constantly I'm being called a liar. And so this was why I was so anal. I could have just let the thing go. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it was just the principle of it and the fact that I'm constantly being called a liar. So I sat there bothered about the reaction that I had just gotten from her. And I said, nah, man, I really want to prove that what I'm saying is true. Now, mind you, everything's recorded. Apparently, they'd be running back the cameras when they're ready. They could have just ran back the morning and saw that what I'm saying is true. But anyway, so I said, listen, is there any way you could look through the call log and see who we've called for the day? And so she hesitated and she said, yeah. And so she looked through and she pushed up and she said the name of the person I spoke to. I said, yes, that's who I spoke to. Can you call her? So she called her and she said, hey, sis. And I said, hey, could you put it on speaker? She didn't put it on speaker. And so she spoke to the lady and she said, hey, the inmate that you called, or the detainee, that you called about earlier, was it so-and-so, the name that I was saying? And so then she paused and she said, okay, it was him. And I said, see, I said, see? And she said, so what? She started to get loud with me. She said, so what? That doesn't mean you told me anything. She said, that doesn't mean that you asked me any questions. I said, yes, I did. I said, ask the lady on the phone. I said, ask her. I said, could you put it on speaker? Ask her if I asked somebody where this person works. And so she kind of just quieted down and said some stuff to the lady, and then it just dropped from there, And so it's just like, after that, it really got bad in there. Like, that was where it really hit the fan. At first, it was just her being distant when the laugh thing happened right before lunch. But so the energy had already shifted. But then that thing happened, and that was where it really, like, everything I did was annoying her. And she was no longer being patient. She was no longer moving the way she was moving with me before. It was just like this hostile, what felt like a hostile environment. And everything I was doing was wrong, and everything I was doing was irritating. And so, even just something as simple as, the CO on the other side leaving, he left for a couple seconds. I guess he ran out to do something. He didn't tell us. And so they were knocking, some inmates on that side was knocking on the door. So I ran over to see what was going on. So I opened the door, and they had like this big case of water. It was two of them standing there. And so I said, hey, what's going on? And they said, where's the CO? Where's so-and-so? I said, I think he ran out. And so the guy behind the jail cell, not cell, but like the units are blocked off by a cell door, and then you have all of the cells inside the unit. So the door apparently was locked, and I didn't know it. And so he said, hey, you could grab me one of the waters? And he said, I want water. He said, you could grab, he said, no, that's not what he said. He didn't say, can you grab me one of the waters? He said, I want a water. He said, who's in there with you? That's what he said. He didn't even give me a chance to respond, really. He just said, I want a water. He said, who's in there with you? Which CO was with you? And then he just started calling her, right? Because I told him who it was. I said, oh, I'm with CO so-and-so. And so he started calling her. And so she said, so you couldn't just open the thing? And so she got up and she said, oh, made this noise like she was annoyed, and grabbed the key and opened the gate so he could get the water. So I sat with her and I said, hey, I said, that's something simple that I could have done. I said, I didn't know what was happening. All I heard was knocking. I opened the door. The inmate said, I want a water. And then he asked me who's with me. And so I said that you were the one that was with me. And he started calling you. I wasn't even given an opportunity to open this out. I said, that's something I could have easily done. Because I know they kind of paint it like this thing, like I'm not doing stuff. And I think it's really more so just annoyance with my presence. Anyway, so hold on a second, y'all. Let me blow my nose. Let me end this and blow my nose. Anyways, y'all, let me continue. So, sorry, I had to blow my nose. So when I said that, she kind of like softened up a little bit, but it was still just kind of like this annoyance with me, right? It was just up from there, from the whole day, from ever since, like I said, the first initial, what I would call a misunderstanding happened. And then the second thing, that was like the camel that broke the straw that broke the camel's back, when the thing with that argument about where the detainee worked happened. That was when she really just started acting annoyed, and everything I was doing was annoying, and I was doing everything wrong, and it just got really hostile in there. So anyways, I just calmly spoke to her because I was trying to rein it back in and get it back to where it was before. I was trying my best, and I'm used to working in professional settings, and even though I'm not the most social person, when it comes to working a job and having social interactions that are professional, I'm good at that. Right? I'm not good at friendship, socialization, and small talk. But if we're talking business, I can get with you on that level. So I was just trying to speak to her and speak reason with her, right? And so I explained to her, this is what happened when I opened the door. I could have easily done that. You didn't have to get up and open the door. I could have done it myself, because I realized she had gotten irritated that she had to get up and open the door. So when I explained that to her, she said, okay, and she softened up and was just telling me to write a note about it in the book, whatever. So while I'm doing that, she asked me something else. I can't remember what it was that we were talking about, but she asked me something else, and it made me lose focus on something I was doing in the book. And what I was doing was I was heading up each page. And she said, wait a minute. She said, you don't know to put a heading on each page? I said, no. I said, since I've been working here, I've been told to head up the page when you first start, but I didn't know that every page had to have a heading. And she said, well, that's telling me that you're not looking back in the book. That means you're not looking back in the book at the notes from the prior CO. And I said, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't. I said, I haven't been doing that. And she said, well, you need to be doing that. And I said, okay, no problem. I said, I know for the future now. Right. So that's what I was doing. I was heading up each page that I had written on so far because I was the one that was writing the book for the day. So something else she and I started talking about very briefly. And then I went back to do what I was doing, and I couldn't remember what I was doing, that I was putting a heading on each page. It was a high stress environment. Like I said, her whole demeanor had changed, and I felt like everything I was doing was wrong and annoying to her. And then also too, it's very easy for me to lose focus. I have ADD. So I said, oh my goodness, I can't remember what I was doing. And she said, you were heading up the pages, in this annoyed voice. I said, oh yeah. And so she just went, took a deep breath, and she just held her head for a long time, like I was giving her a headache. So I paused what I was doing. I said, look, I'm sorry if you have to repeat yourself to me sometimes. I said, I have ADD, and it's very easy for me to lose focus. I said, I'm in here trying my best. I said, I again do apologize if you feel like you're repeating yourself about certain things. Whatever I said, something like that I said to her. And she just held her head, and then she just went back to doing what she was doing. But after that, oh my God, the direct-to-convo was just getting real gnarly with her. Like, she was doing direct-to-convo with the CEO, and it was just really harsh, mean things being said now, like malicious. And then she even did a cell search of this detainee cell, and I don't want to say too much and end up in problems, right? But this cell was, whew. I've done cell searches with people before, and from what I understand, this detainee has mental health issues, right? Like, he seems like a relatively normal guy, and he is. People with mental health issues are normal. They're normal people, everyday humans. They just have issues, right? Things that they've been through maybe that has caused their brain to work in a different way, or it could just be the wiring of their brain. Everybody's different. This is why I want to get into psychology. And eventually, I've told you all this already, the goal is to become a psychologist. Yes, I plan to be a CO for a while, so I will be doing that for a while, if the most I spares my life. But the goal is to get my master's degree, and eventually I would like to work for the borough in that capacity as a psychologist. So I would like to work with the mental health unit. That's really my focus and my goal. And obviously, like I said, that's going to take a few years. So they're going to have me doing corrections work for a while, and it would be good to get that experience under my belt anyway. And that would give me a chance to build a relationship with the prisoners. Unfortunately, with me starting at the level I'm starting at as a target, and all these false narratives and feelings towards me, it's just difficult. I have to start at a lower level where someone can come in with a clean slate. That's not the case with me. And so it's like I have to fight hard for everything. But nonetheless, if I can get through these rough patches, being a CO will allow me to build a relationship with the prisoners. And so there, I could start there. And then eventually later down the line, once I get my master's degree, I can switch over to the medical part of the borough, right? And I can work with them on that level. I'm interested in that. I have mental health in my family. That's something that's in my family. Excuse me, let me sit up. Sorry, y'all. I was trying to get the charger plugged in. But yeah, that's something that's in my family, mental health issues. And I have some myself. I'm not crazy like they try to paint it and make me feel. They know I'm not too. That's the funny thing. They know I'm very sane. But I do have mental health issues myself. I've struggled with different things myself, like depression in the past. And I have ADD. I have autism, Asperger's, high functioning. So I'm not good at socializing with people. That's why it's so difficult being a target and starting at such a low level when you're already somebody that struggles with socializing. You can imagine what a major handicap that is. But anyways, nonetheless, I'm interested in that, right? So I'm never ever trying to come for somebody that's having a mental health issue. So typically if you see somebody's house in disarray or looking dirty or stink or their room looking nasty, typically something mental is going on, whether it be depression, whether it be that, they're schizophrenic, some sort of mental issue is happening, obviously. So that's what was going on in this room. It was just a complete, I'm not going to say too much, but it was, there was even an odor. I remember having to move from the door several times because it was such a strong odor coming from the room. And I actually smelled it earlier when I was doing the check of all the rooms. And when I passed this room and I would put my face by the thing, the odor just hit my face, so I was just like, ooh, I was like, something's going on in there. But this was before things had gotten rough in the unit, right? And before they started, the directed convo with her started getting really harsh, and, they started inserting theater. So anyway, she decides to do this random self-serve his room, and apparently they have been telling him to clean his room. And so in there was just, there's a lot going on. I'm not gonna say too much, but I don't even know how she was in there so long. You could tell she's used to the job. She was in there for a long time searching, and I had to keep moving from by the door because my head was already, like I told you guys, splitting, pounding headache. And, I thought I was going to throw up. And I'm not a scornful person, and I'm ready to do the job myself, but it was just a long day, and my head was hurting. It was splitting, things that started getting gnarly in the unit. And then now they were doing this, what felt like theater. I think it was a genuine cell search. I think they had been telling him to clean his room. I truly believe so. But then I think what also happened was they decided to insert theater, right? And so she started to, act like everything was disgusting and nasty and skinning up her nose. And, it started inserting directed convo. Again, the insinuation that I'm nasty and my house is nasty. Now, mind you, my house is nowhere near what was going on in this man's room. But, they over-exaggerate with the programming. At most, really, it's just the bathroom that's gotten kind of gnarly, and it's because there's so many people sharing the bathroom. And like I said, everyone in here is going through stuff, and so we haven't been keeping up with cleaning it. There's times where it just gets gnarly in there. Not that kind of gnarly, like what was going on in that cell, but where you could do better, honestly. Like, this is not how we're used to keeping a bathroom. And I keep saying it's so odd now that they're allowing cameras in the house of all times now when we haven't been keeping up with the cleanliness and the functioning of the house. It's just like crazy to me. This is why I keep feeling like something spiritual is going on. I keep saying I feel like something spiritual is going on. But nonetheless, I don't care at this point. This is just how it works when you're targeted. You're judged about everything, even things that you wouldn't typically be judged about, much less for a house that's not as up to par, as clean as it could be. So anyway, she just started acting like everything was nasty and skinning up her nose. And the inmates are in the background talking and doing directed convo and talking about nasty, this and that, and doing a bunch of directed convo. It was a humiliation tactic. And then all of a sudden her husband comes in with food and like, oh, your husband's coming in. And I said, good thing you're a married woman, and all this directed convo and extra stuff. And he comes by the door with the food, and it was all just theater, right? Like I said, I believe the cell search was real and genuine. The cell needed to clean. You could tell that was not something they threw together. There was even moldy bread and moldy old food on top of the top shelf. The toilet was in disarray. Anyway, I'm not going to go into details about what was going on in there. Like I said, because I believe he has, from what I've been told, mental health issues, right? But oh my God, they really were trying to do theater in that moment. And this is what happens a lot of the times with theater. It will be genuine, authentic things happening, and they'll use the moment as a time to insert directed convo and do theater. So this was a moment for her to be able to act disgusted, like she's repulsed by me, and then have her husband come up, excuse me, as if I've been trying to press up on her and get next to her, and oh, she's repulsive. Like this just not even been the case, and they know that's not the case. Not once have it come onto this woman, right? And it's actually, again, like I said, ducking and dodging really until PT started, because I was so humiliated. She's come to, have conversation about whatever job related stuff, and I'm ducking and dodging because I just feel like the thing is so humiliating. That's what's really been happening. That's the reality of the situation. And, so it's just crazy the way they try to paint it, or this, it's just weird how the thing is kind of spinning. Again, they wouldn't have even known about anything had they not been in my brain. So anyways, what does happen though, and I will admit this, is I'm an overthinker, and that's part of, by the way, that's a symptom of ADD and autism, OCD. So it's obsessive compulsive disorder, right? So just like how with the bathroom, I've explained this to you all, I can't swallow my spit if the bathroom's open. I'm a germaphobe. As much as the bathroom looks how it is, I am a germaphobe. I always have Lysol, I always have sanitizer. I'm a germaphobe. I'm funny about things, right? All of that's a part of my OCD. Another thing is I overthink things, and this is what's created a lot of the mess that I'm in right now, is overthinking things. And so with her in this situation, since this popped off and things have started happening, as soon as the dream thing happened, I started having these obsessive thoughts about the situation, and every interaction she and I have, I think it over in my head and think about what everybody saw when she and I had the interaction, and just sitting there overthinking every little interaction. It's not even just with her. With every interaction I have in the prison, I overthink it. And I know they know this is the case too. But specifically with her, because of the situation, I'm always overthinking and thinking about whatever interaction she and I had. And so that was referenced too, which I just thought was funny. That doesn't mean anything. At most, that's the only thing that's happened between she and I that they could say was anything. I haven't come on to her. I never go out of my way to speak to her. I'm always actually, like I said, prior to PT, ducking and dodging because I feel like the whole thing is embarrassing and humiliating. But yet there's still this constant insertion of her husband and, them trying to do theater with that. But it hasn't been too gnarly. It wasn't as bad as what happened today where what felt like malicious. And so, trying to humiliate me is what it felt like. And I'm like, I wasn't even trying to get next to this woman. I have respect for her marriage and I'm straight. I want to get married myself. I want to have children one day, despite all the targeting and the blockages. I like men. Okay. That's what I like. There was this weird thing that happened with this woman, an isolated incident. And again, I reiterate, there's technology in my brain and the timing is quite coincidental, but whatever. I'm not going to just throw it all on technology. I've already explained my feelings towards the situation, but it's isolated. They've been in my brain. They know full well all I think about is men, aside from her, right? So not once have I tried to push up on her, right? So I don't really understand the insertion of certain things. It's just, to me, ludicrous. But nonetheless, that's what started happening, and it started just turning into this real shit show in the unit, boy. Like, she started doing a lot of direct-to-convo and just saying some really mean, harsh things. A lot of the things that's been being thrown at me these last 2 weeks, where she wasn't really getting involved as much, she really started to get involved, boy, in that second half of the day. Just a bunch of direct-to-convo, and it just got real gnarly up in there, boy. And again, because I'm strong-minded and strong-willed, it's not something that would ever make me cry. But I believe it was just like all a humiliation tactic, and I believe things took a turn for the worse because of the two things that I mentioned earlier that happened, I believe, were misunderstandings. And so I'm just like, I hope this doesn't make PT get weird now, because I want my job. And she even kept all of a sudden inserting stimuli about leaving and this and that, those type of things that she wasn't saying that before, right? She was being more strict on me and acting like she cared and like I needed to do this and that. And it just, the whole energy shifted. I'm telling you, after those two things I mentioned earlier happened. So I'm here to stay, regardless of whatever happens. I keep saying this, I'm going to be back again and again and again and again, as long as the job is available, because I need it and I deserve it, right? So I just have to tread light and be careful with the situation, because it's like I'm on eggshells and everything and anything can create something for me. It's like walking through I don't want to say a landmine, but it's like walking through a field full of landmines where I could at any moment explode if I make the wrong step. I have to tiptoe at this job and be careful because of my circumstances. But I just want to document what happened and where I think things went wrong with the interaction between she and I today. It just got real gnarly. Like, it was just a whole different energy at the end of the day. By the end of the day, it was terrible, man. I even had the cafeteria guy come up and he's pinching his nose. He low-key has a feeling towards me too, even though he's been kind to me. It's just this weird thing in there, right? It's just, whoa. So I am in the fight of my life as a target, but then also the fight for my job, because this is one of those things where I'm going to have to fight for this position. I could done tell already. And it's been that way since I first got there. It's just that things had started getting better. And then that thing that was out of my control happened. I made videos about it. And then things got real harsh in there again. But the other CEO that was in the unit that I told you I was cracking up at what he said about the elderly guy and the hearing aid, he even made a comment. He said, I got to tell you, he said one thing about it. He said, if you survive in here and you keep this job, he said, you're a real beast. You need to pat yourself on the back. And that was directed convo towards me, because he knows, and they all know, what I've been going through these last 2 weeks. And really, since I've started, it's been off and on. Like I said, things got better for me, but it's been a challenge as a target, but now that things have gotten real harsh, to the point where my stress level was up by the end of the day, my head felt like it was splitting open. I had to take oregano oil under my tongue. Like, that's how I was feeling. Like, I was feeling so lightheaded. He realized, like, if for me to push through all that bullying and whatever else is going on and still keep the job, I would have to be a beast for real. Yeah, I'm a beast, and I pat myself on the back at the end of the day because I'm there to stay. I actually feel like I should be a police officer. As tough as I am, with my mentality and my physical strength, I actually feel like I'm in law enforcement. I feel like I should be a cop on the front lines with this type of, the way I'm built. Like, I think I should be a police officer, to be honest with you. Anyways, so that's what it is, y'all. That's what happened. I just want to document and talk about it. This will be my last video about work, because like I said, it doesn't matter what happens, even if it's something that's completely out of my control. I'm a target, and so this is just what's going to happen no matter where I go. And the videos seem to be a source of contention I usually create them, like I said, to defend myself. But even that is creating issues for me. So at this point, I'm going to just stop making them, at least about work, so I can protect my space and keep my job, really. Anyways, that's it, y'all. I have PT in a few, so I'll see whatever happens, right? I'm going to push through and do the best I can, and hopefully, things are okay. And that's it. Got to get up in a few, so I'm going to try to lie down and get some rest, y'all. But I just want to finish this video and just document what happened and, again, defend myself, talk about where I think things went wrong and what's going on. Like I said, just documentation of what's been ongoing for the last couple of weeks. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all in the next one, man. Peace out. I feel like there was something else I wanted to talk about, and I really can't remember. Oh, she started saying this thing about strong perfume, and she smelled it too, and all of a sudden, right? Like I smell so bad, and I'm spraying on strong perfume. Let me tell you when this started. This started a couple weeks ago in the sim videos that you guys listen to. In one of the videos, I mentioned the fact that I'm so terrified about the false narratives that have been created about me, right? Like them lying and saying my breath stinks, even despite me taking an actual halometer test on camera. And that's kind of died down a little bit, but it's still off and on. They still kind of do it, but not as bad as before, especially since I've taken the halometer test. They keep hinting that I'm dumb or slow, like it's just a tactic being used to push a false narrative because supposedly I lie on people. But I said I'm so terrified in those same two videos that I'm getting retribution for now, those villainization of the targeted individual videos. And one of them, I was talking about the fact that I don't pee at work. Like I'll sit there for the whole 9 hours and hold my pee, and I'll have coworkers around me peeing several times, and I'll hold it until I go home because, I'm so terrified that I'm going to go in there and use the bathroom and they'll lie and say I stink. Because remember what they started doing in the gym. Guys I had worked out around so many times, right, that hadn't done anything, all of a sudden acting like I stink, because of this one dude that came in, right, last year and tried to, his stupid shit, create some false narrative, right? So I knocked that down in a video, they stopped doing it. But that was still a thing, right, that had been said, right? And so I talked about it in the video. I was like, I'm so terrified with all the false narratives that I'm going to go in there and use the bathroom, or they're going to come in and lie and say that I stink, right? Or I smell whatever, because that's the lie, that I smell fishy and my breath stinks like cuckoo or poop, and just a bunch of lies and false narratives. They're doing it on purpose, not even just specifically at work, in general with the targeting. So I said that in the video. Then I ended up working with this CEO that has the same last name as me. Apparently he's a far distant relative or whatever. But he too obviously gets involved with the targeting. I mean, if my own direct people in my close circle get involved, what's a far, far, far distant relative? I mean, come on. So he's kind. I like him. He's a very gregarious guy, funny guy. You could tell, like I said, would be cool to be friends with if it weren't for my targeting. There are people, I keep saying this, that I come across that I could tell I would be friends with and cool with if it weren't for my targeting. Like, they're super cool. He's one of those people. But when I was with him, there was a day I was with him, he was doing a lot of directed convo. And he was hinting to me about talking about people and making rumors about people. So he kept saying rumors. And then he's, kind of hinted to me why whatever's happened to me is happening. And then he said this thing about how there was this girl, and he said, I don't want to tell you about her. And this was right after I said what I said in the video about being afraid to use the bathroom. Right? He said, but she used to wear a bunch of, and they know I wear perfume too. I purposely spray on a bunch of perfume, nice smelling perfume. I make sure my clothes is washed, and I bathe, and I do it purposely to make sure that it's obvious that I don't smell bad and it's a false narrative. So he said, this girl used to spray on a bunch of perfume, and then when she would use the bathroom, it'd be a mix of fish and perfume when she come out the bathroom, and, blah, 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 blah. He said that and rubbed his nose, but then he started kind of hinting to me about talking about people and making rumors and stuff. So I kind of understand where he was going with it. But ever since then, I noticed in the facility, it's kind of like that turned into a thing too. Instead of it being about my breath, since I took the halometer test, it turned into them now pretending like my body stinks. It's ludicrous to me, and it's not even an all the time tactic, but it's used sometimes. So towards the end of the day, that was one of the comments she made too, about the perfume was so strong and I smelled it too, and da-da-da. There's all kinds of stuff the girl was saying, talking about big backs, and, that's another stupid shit they like to say about my back being big, and, my body looks good, y'all. That don't even get in my head. When they say the big back thing, I just laugh. That's actually partially why I can lift so heavy in the gym, though, is because of my physique. I'm naturally muscular, and everyone in my family is built this way. That actually comes from my father's side of the family. All of my siblings have it. Square shoulders, big strong back, strong arms, strong legs, etc. Athletic build. That's just how we are. It's genetic. But it's not this big, huge linebacker back like how they be trying to make it seem. I can look at myself in the mirror. I look at my videos. My body's looking good, right? So that's not something that really bothered me too much. But It's just the fact that these mean things were being said, and she had her whole personality had taken a complete turn by the end of the day. I was just like, what the heck happened? You know? Anyway, so that's it, y'all. I just wanted to talk about it. This will be the last video about work, right? Like I said, obviously more things might happen, likely. I'm not going to talk about it. I want to keep my job. So I really felt like I had to talk about what happened today, though, because it was just wild to me. And my head is still split, and I got PT in basically 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Everything's sore. My head is still hurting. I'm nauseous. They've been humming on me. I don't know how I'm going to do. I don't know what the energy is going to be like. I'm going to try my best, y'all. But it's a blessing. Tomorrow, or today technically, is going to be a short day for me. The PT days, I only have 8 hours instead of 9 hours, and most of that's spent doing, not most of it, but a good chunk of it spent doing PT. Then I go home, I get ready, I go to work from 8 to 1 o'clock, and I get off, so I don't have to stay there until 5. So it's going to be a better day for me, thank the Most High. So that's it, y'all. That's the update about work, and that's the last one you're going to hear about work, really. If I do come back and tell you anything, it'll more so be like an update of if I'm going to police academy, when that's happening, if the Most High spares my life, etc. Anyway, y'all, that's what it is. So I'll talk to y'all on the next one. Peace out. Video and show you what my body's looking like if you haven't seen this video. Working out, pictures already. I've been working out consistently, right? But you can see that I'm not. So y'all can see I have very square shoulders, right? And my arms are muscular. I've been working out. But I don't look like this big back gorilla thing that they're trying to create. My shape looks good. And I'm actually grateful for what's happening because that's from hard work and consistency. So that doesn't ever really get to me when I say it, but it's just, again, like a part of the bullying tactics. But this is what I'm looking like now. Wait, like I'm not overweight at all. By no stretch of the imagination am I overweight. So I'm not looking bad, y'all. And my back isn't this big, huge, it's just not that. But anyways, I'll talk to you on the next one. Peace out. I'm looking good. So anyways, they're trying to get in my head.